Do you want to know what one of the most dangerous words in your vocabulary is? All right, I'll let you in. It's the word someday. All right. Someday when the kids are older, someday when my business calms down, someday when I finally feel ready for that next thing. But the truth behind the word someday, like someday is never going to show up. And every day you spend waiting for maybe a perfect condition is like the day that you're never going to get back that you could have been utilizing. Now, in this video, I want to show you 5 really practical strategies how to break out of this, like the waiting room syndrome. Like, I'm just waiting for the right time. Like, so I want you to stop postponing your life and finally start building momentum like today, right inside of the messy reality of everything that you have going on. Because I understand that as a parent, an entrepreneur, someone running a business, that it's not a clean day-to-day schedule, and you can't just burn everything down and go move to the woods to find yourself. And so I want to dive deep into these principles so that you have the ability to understand like what you can do to move past that waiting room syndrome. Now, of course, I always like to start off the video by being like, welcome to the Giver Method channel. If you're new here, if you're back for another video, welcome back. But welcome to the Giver Method channel. My name's Jake, and I'm really glad you took the time to watch this video. Now, I like to ground a lot of these conversations in a couple questions for you to think about, to reflect on. If you've ever felt like your life is on, I don't know, if you've ever felt like it's on permanent pause, waiting for the right conditions before you could move forward. Have you felt that before? Or maybe you've told yourself that you'll pursue your dreams once things calm down, work calms down, the kids are older, my finances look better. Or maybe you've convinced yourself that you need more time, more money, more confidence before you can start. On the surface, it feels like you're being responsible. But in reality, like, it's just you're avoiding, like, it's avoidance, and you've just dressed it up as preparation. And so if that sounds familiar in any way, then please hear me. You're not weak or lazy, and you're definitely not alone, because a lot of us confuse waiting thinking that it's some sort of wisdom. But what really is going on is you're sitting in that waiting room, like, and it is a syndrome that you have. It's this dangerous headspace where you've convinced yourself that you're getting ready or you'll be there someday, and when in reality, all we're doing is postponing the life that we want until something like mythical produces itself, some sort of perfect future that almost never will arrive. I mean, maybe you're a parent who swears you'll focus on your passions when your kids are older, but years go by and your kids just get busier, and that window where you were waiting for never truly opens. Or maybe, I don't know, you're an entrepreneur promising yourself that you'll finally focus on your real vision once the business stabilizes. But, I mean, gosh, every milestone you pass just creates another fire to put out, more checklists, more things to go do. Or maybe you're an employee telling yourself that you want to change careers once I've saved more, I've gained more experience, I want to be ready. But, like, those golden handcuffs just, like, they're getting tighter and tighter every single year. Once again, I don't want you to be reckless or impatient, but this is about realizing that the perfect conditions that you're waiting for don't exist. In fact, like, often the very constraints, like that limited time, money, energy, like that, they can spark creativity and focus that you've been missing, and your gifts. Oh my gosh. So the Giver Method, the G in Giver Method is all about your gifts and your superpowers, but your gifts, like, they're not meant to sit on the shelf until everything's aligned perfectly. They're needed now. You are the only person with your combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences, which means you are the only person that can make the exact type of impact that you were born to make. So I want to help you unlock all these things so you can go and make that impact as much as humanly possible. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder, author of this book. It's called The Giver Method. Everything I'm going to cover today is going to be grounded in principles directly from this book. And the reason why I bring it up is right now you can get on Amazon for as little as $1.99. You can check out the link in the description, take it to Amazon, or go on Amazon, pause the video, pull up your app, and look up The Giver Method by Jake Talbert. Get yourself a copy. I highly recommend you do. Now, the reason why this has become an Amazon bestseller, has tons of 5-star reviews, and the reason why I bring it up in this video is everything we're talking about is grounded in it. And then all of the exercises, action items, the things that we talk about today and in the book are designed for people like you. I designed them off my life where I'm a father of 3, I'm an entrepreneur, I've been in the corporate sea of cubicles before, and so I wanted to make sure that there are actual things you could go do that fit into the life you are living, not that someday you'll have to find. Because, once again, that's why we're addressing this whole idea of someday. Now, I'll never forget, like I said, there's a lot of stories and they're grounded in my life. I'll never forget the day it hit me, like this sort of idea of like the someday hit me personally. I've been talking about doing things like whatever that goal would be. I wanted to, write a book. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to, but I kept telling myself that the timing was never right, And then the day comes where someone actually calls you out, someone close to you. Someone close to me actually called me out and they're like, man, you talk about like writing a book or starting this business. You talk about doing these things to make impact for others, but you never actually do. You haven't written it. You haven't. And like when I got kind of called out on that, it stopped me cold, because in that moment I realized like what I was modeling to those around me, to my family, to my friends, to my colleagues, like was that, adults sacrifice their dreams indefinitely. That same day, like, gosh, I was like, well, what do I got to do to start right now? I started working on the first ever book I worked on that never saw the light of day. But that's because I ended up finding this idea of the giver method. When I did discover that I was going to write the giver method, like it became something that consumed me. I had to keep researching and writing until it came out. Launching a business became this idea of like, I don't know what the service offerings are going to be. I don't know how the model's going to work. I don't know but I'm going to go start putting it out there for people to take advantage of. So all these things just happened because we start putting things into motion. Not that there were perfect conditions. I just needed to have some real progress, and in time, gosh, I wrote a book, launched the business. My life still hasn't calmed down. I'm busier than ever, but I stopped waiting for it to calm down and took action. Now, here's what life and a ton of the research that's in the book and that I did as a part of this video, like confirms. People who wait for some sort of condition, perfect condition, ideal condition, whatever, they rarely ever start. They're in this like what I've heard people refer to as like the planning fallacy, where it shows up like we show that we underestimate how long it takes for our circumstances to improve, while overestimating how much time and energy it would actually take us to do later. So really, like, waiting keeps you stuck. Acting, even in a small, messy, imperfect way, it's going to build confidence, it's going to build momentum, it's going to move you forward. And the truth is, like, hopefully this would change things for you, is like, your limitations, they're not barriers, they're building blocks. They're going to force you to focus on what matters, to get creative in ways that you never would. You'd look for, if you had unlimited resources, it'd be different, but it's going to force you to get really creative and design something that fits specifically for you. So I want to share these 5 essential strategies that I've used to help parents and entrepreneurs and employees just like you escape that trap of someday, and start making real progress in their world. And once again, this isn't like productivity hacks or calendar hacks or whatever. Like, these are real frameworks, things that actually work. And once again, I don't want to add more to your schedule. I want to make this not, you realize that someday is actually today and you're going to do it. Don't listen to the myth of I need to be prepared or whatever. We're going to cover a bunch of things straight from the giver method, because when you stop actually waiting for permission to use your gifts, you start expressing them right where you are right now, then you discover something really strong and powerful. Like, these natural abilities, they don't need perfect conditions to create value. They just need you to act right now, like with the life that you already have. And so, like I said, if you want to go deeper, you can get yourself a copy of the Giver Method on Amazon. Use the link down below. If you feel like you've been stuck in that waiting room for too long, you want some personal support, some coaching, well, I've got a couple of one-on-one coaching spots open. There's a link below. You can check out the details about it and watch the video on that page. If it makes sense to book a call, then we book the call, talk about what that looks like for you. Of course, if you have any sort of a stage, a podcast, event, a community, whatever, where you feel like this message would benefit them, then check out the link below about speaking and podcasting. I'd love to bring it to your world in a very real and practical way. And so we can check out what that would look like. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications. Want to make sure you don't miss out on the stuff that we put out. Like the video and comment your thoughts along the way. I love to hear what's resonating with you as we go. And then with that, let's stop wasting time. Let's dive in. I've got these 5 really cool strategies that I think are going to impact you a ton. And so the first one is all around this idea of how you call out what you're postponing and why you're really waiting. Okay, so think this way. Strategy number 1, I call stop waiting on someday strategy. Because if we're honest, we've all got a list of things we say we'll do someday. Maybe it's starting a side business or getting healthier, writing a book, or, you've been talking about whatever, or even just, carving out more time for my family. I'm going to do these things someday. But if we're being real, someday doesn't show up. And it's nice sounding in the way that we say it to ourselves. But basically it's we're saying hey, not now. And then 5 years is going to pass and nothing's going to have changed for you. Now, the first move so you can break out of that waiting room kind of syndrome and such is to do the Someday Audit. Grab a notebook, write down everything that you've been postponing until timing feels right. And don't just don't just keep it in your head. Actually list it out and be honest with yourself. Are there things that you've even put aside that maybe you forgot about? That you're oh yeah, I totally forgot. I said I'd do that. I never did. All the dreams, the projects, the changes that you've been putting off, whether it's career shifts or passions, health goals, interests, or relationships. And then next to each one, write down like the condition that you've been waiting for, and not the vague, like, when I have more time. It's like, cool, like be very specific. Hey, after I finish this project at work, when my youngest son starts school, once I've saved $10,000, whatever, when I finally feel confident enough, whatever that thing may be. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, but it honestly could be one of the most freeing exercises you do. Be brutally honest with yourself. How likely is it that condition to really improve in the next year or 2 years? And rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, because most of the time, those conditions don't magically get better, right? Work doesn't get calmer, new projects show up. Kids don't take less energy and time as they grow. They need you in different ways as they get older. Now, while you're waiting for that perfect timing, life keeps moving, and the cost of waiting just isn't lost time. It's that lost growth and opportunities and joy, the life that you could be living. So that's why this matters so much. When you see that someday illusion, that's why the first strategy I want to cover is this one, is like, when you see past the illusion, it forces you to realize that right now actually is the best conditions for you to get going. Creativity can spark from anywhere, and that's where your urgency shows up. That's where you finally start waiting for a life, to be easier, or to start building. Like, no, I want to start building it right where I am, right in the middle of the messy imperfectness of where I am right now, and I know that it's going to cause and create improvements for me in my life. Now, with that, that's going to take us into the second strategy, which is all about like turning your "I can't" into like, here's how I can. It's a little bit of a brain shift. So I title this one, I call this one, you got to flip the script on your limitations, because the truth is most of us are waiting for life to get easier before we start, and more time, more money, more confidence, more whatever. But waiting for perfect conditions is the trap we're talking about. Deep down, you're probably already like, gosh, you know it. Like, and so the second move, it's this reframe. Reframe all the constraints that you've been having. Stop seeing them as these walls, and start treating them like they're a frame, a picture that you're painting. Boundaries don't kill art; they actually force creativity. Oftentimes, when I work with small businesses, I'm like, no, let's put systems and processes in place that are really boring, but they eliminate the boring so that you can focus on the creative. You can focus on the showing up in the way you want. And we're doing the same concept with yourself and how we want to look at flipping this script. So think about it. Like the Beatles, right? They only had 4 tracks to record on. And out of that limitation came music that completely changed the world. Think about it. Like Twitter started with you can only do 140 characters. And it's now X, and it's become this global platform. And some of the most groundbreaking ideas come from restrictions that are there, not an abundance, not that everything was available. And so bring it back to yourself. Like, take a goal that you've been putting off, and gosh, it's a book you want to write, the business you've been dreaming of starting, the healthier version of you that feels out of reach, and ask, like, what can I start with right now in this moment? Like, this video is going to end and I can go do this thing. No more, I don't have time. Look, I'm a busy person. I've got 3 kids. I'm married. I run a business. I've launched this other business. I'm a leader at church and church activities. I've got community things I do. I've got family in the area. I've got my front and backyard and my garden. And I've got all. I'm a busy person. I do lots of things. I got to travel. And if it was something that I'm passionate about that I want to work on, then I know that I can find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And if you say you don't, you are lying to yourself. I guarantee that there are 5, 10, or 15 minutes that you spend on a phone, watching a screen, just daydreaming, which those are fine, but they don't fill your energy back up. I want you to focus on things that are going to work you towards where you're going, because those are going to actually start leading you towards more and more energy. So sometimes those 15-minute sprints, or those scrappy, think about like a low budget experiments, like they end up being way more effective than if you wait for every resource in the world to be available, because you learn things along the way. So instead of waiting for fewer constraints, design these pocket-sized versions of the dream that fit inside your current life. If you want to, you want to be a speaker, start by leading, what's the 5-minute section of your next team meeting you could do? If you want to be a coach, start by having intentional conversations in people who are already in your circle that you're already talking to. Now, this is where breakthroughs can be born, not when you have everything that you need, but when you just decide to put in the work. Just with where you've got. You just have to start doing something. You got to start doing it now, because when you flip the script on those limitations, they stop being these excuses. They become the very thing that can sharpen your focus and unlock creativity and get you moving forward in the right direction. And that's going to take us to the third strategy or area I want to focus on. Like, there's this why a good enough beats a perfect someday every single time. I simplify it down and I often say, the version 1 will always outperform version none. And if you're waiting for the perfect someday, you're in the version none. It doesn't exist. So think about it. The strategy is the power of just taking imperfect and messy actions. Because if we talk about that trap, like of perfectionism, once again, I'm being responsible. I'm doing it the right way. I'm doing it this way. I'm waiting for it. Nope, it's perfectionism. You're just covering it up. There's that voice in your head that says, hey, I'll start when I'm more confident, when I've got that perfect plan, when I'm ready. That voice is lying to you. I'm just going to be real with you. The truth is that you don't have to get confident before you can act. You get confidence because you take action. Waiting to feel ready is how years slip by without any sort of progress. And that's why this third principle is talking about imperfect action. Now, I'm not saying reckless action. I'm not saying random action or whatever. I'm talking about real and authentic steps forward. Even if they're clumsy and small and messy, that happens. It's okay. So think of it like you're laying bricks. You don't have to build a wall in the first day. You're just putting down one brick. So that's this idea of the one brick rule. I can't remember who told me about who's called it that, but it's the one brick rule. You want a career change? Well, cool. The first brick isn't this perfect 5-year plan of this new career. It's updating your resume. It's reaching out to, a few people with some short conversations. That's it. That's all it is. It's one brick. That's all we're worried about doing. And if you feel like you don't have time, like I said at the beginning, believe me, you have time. You are lying to yourself. Every person can find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I call this the 15-minute rule. If you need to make it 5, okay, but I think you could still find 15. What could you do for just 15 minutes a day towards the thing you keep postponing? Write a page. I'm going to watch a tutorial. I'm going to reach out to one person. I'm going to write a post. I'm going to call a person. Whatever. 15 minutes daily adds up fast while waiting for the perfect, 2-hour block, means that things won't happen ever. And then think about action anchors that you could do, tie your progress to things that you already do. So 10 minutes of writing after your morning coffee, research while you're on your lunch break, practice those skills while cooking dinner. No new schedule required. Like I said, it's all about doing it in the messy middle with where you are right now. Just attach some new action with existing routines that you already have. And then if you want to get comfortable with this idea of okay, what's good enough? The Imperfect website you launched today will teach you more than the perfect one that you've been planning on forever. The awkward first video that you post will go further than waiting a whole nother month of overthinking, with just notes in some sort of an app. When hesitation shows up, you can beat it back. With the Mel Robbins does the whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think she hit on something genius with that. You just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then you literally go. You move as soon as you have it. You open the laptop. You send that email. You record the thing. Action first, excuses later. If you need to, go read Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. It's one of the most. It will change your life and how you approach things. And these things all work so well because every step forward gives you new information and new confidence that planning never will. Planning feels like you're being safe and responsible, but it doesn't change your life. Action, even if it's messy, imperfect, or whatever, it's going to create momentum. And so your takeaway here is you don't have to wait to be ready. Just start small, start messy, but damn it, start today. Do something, because the perfect someday will never come for you. But the good enough today, man, that could get you all over the place. That could change your life. Now, our fourth one that I want to focus on is this idea of why you're if you're not enough might be the secret, your secret to moving forward. So think of it your limits, how you turn those into your actual launch pads. Because, let's be honest for a second. Most of us think that we finally crush our goal if we just had more time, more money, more energy. But if just for a moment you think about it this way, if I told you that your lack of those things isn't a barrier, it's actually your breakthrough. This is what I like to call turning these limitations into launch pads. The truth is some of the best ideas, biggest breakthroughs, and most meaningful progress are going to come because of the constraints you have, not in spite of them. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to grab just a pen, a pen and paper, and I want you to write down your 3 biggest limitations. Usually it comes down to things like time or money or energy. And then ask yourself, given these exact limits, Like, what version of my goal could I actually launch? And so that's like this, like, what's the limitation or constraint first design that you want to do? So instead of waiting until life looks different, like design it around the life you have. It might just take longer. Sure, that could happen, but it might also open new doors to show you things. Like, history is full of proof that this thing works. Some of the most innovative companies are born out of recessions. Artists made masterpieces with super limited tools. Parents, like, this one, a lot, like, their parents come up with some of the most creative solutions when the day is already like maxed out, and the kids still need something a little bit more from you, and so where it starts to get fun is when you take the limitations and you flip them into the advantage. Like, hey, I've only got 30 minutes a day. Like, cool. Well, that forces you to focus on what matters the most instead of like wasting time on the fluff. You dial in, you're like, well, I'm just gonna go straight to the thing because I don't have time to waste. And even if it's not the right thing, I want to get the thing out the door. If you, let's say you've got a small budget, you're like, well, gosh, well, weird. That makes you like scrappy. It forces you to validate your ideas, then waste thousands of dollars trying to come up with the right thing. If it's low energy, well, that pushes you to pick the one or two things that truly will move the needle instead of saying yes to everything that's going to drain you. You can even create these like experiments with these sort of things. Like, how can I purposefully test these things? Try solving the problem with half the time that you would normally give it. Build something that, using what's already in your house. Use your laptop, use your skill set, whatever. Like, these little limited resource challenges or whatever, they're going to spark creativity in ways that, never, like, it's going to give you endless options of what you could go do. Now, the biggest, like, maybe the biggest gift of constraint is this, like, it forces you to uncover your essential core. Like, when you can't do it all, you're forced to figure it out what actually matters to you. The 20% of your actions that can create 80% of the actual results. Like, it's mind-bending. Once you can see that, you realize you never needed unlimited resources, you just needed to focus. So instead of wishing for fewer limits, start asking them, well, how could I use these limits to be more creative, more effective, more focused, more direct to the point? Because like, you're not enough that you may be feeling might actually be some of the best conditions to get you started. And of course, our fifth one, the final one I want to cover, is how you keep moving even on your busiest days. How do you build momentum in the messy middle? And so it's those lies that we always tell ourselves that we're like, hey, we buy into that progress happens if it's going to slow down, calendars are clear, and we magically feel motivated. I hit on this a little bit earlier where I'm like, no, you can find the time. If you say you can't, you're lying to yourself. You and I both know the day never really comes where life, isn't going to hand you these perfect conditions. And so instead of waiting, you've got to design systems and create momentum inside the life that you already have. Messy and unpredictable and overloaded, all of it. And that's where you're going to build the momentum in that messy middle. So here's how it's going to work. The first thing you want to do is you want your starter blocks, right? What are the small non-negotiable times that you like carve out, before life interrupts you? I like waking up really early. There's things I like to knock out before everyone else wakes up in the world. And so that's time I've carved out for that. It might be, 15 minutes before your kids are awake. It might be 20 minutes during your lunch break or 10 minutes after the dishes are done. Like, whatever. The magic isn't the size of the block. It's that you have a consistent action you're doing and a consistent time that you're doing it. And then add progress anchors that we talked about, it's about attaching actions to the routines that you already do. So, write a few sentences after you check your email. Listen to a podcast that helps you grow while you're driving to work. Practice that skill, like while your coffee brews. Like, no new schedule needed. Just attach growth to the habits that you already have. And then here's the real big lifesaver. Set what's that minimal viable progress standard. This goes back to the previous item. Like, on your best days, maybe you crank out 30 minutes of solid work. But, on a hard day, there's only, like, the standard is like making contact with your goal, right? You open the doc, you write one sentence. You pick up the guitar, you play one chord. It might not feel like much in the moment, but it keeps that chain unbroken. And that matters so much more than waiting for perfect 2-hour blocks for those things to arrive. And then you can even design these constraint-proof systems. Like, what are 3 versions of your action? What's the 5-minute one? What's the 15-minute one? What's the 3-minute version? That way, no matter how much energy you have or how much time, you can keep it moving forward. And then don't forget, that you want to track that. Just have some sort of visibility into it. Write it down. Check it off. Keep a record. Not because you need perfection to check it off or another task to check off, but because seeing that accumulation of these small wins builds belief. It proves to you that on days when your motivation is super low, that you can still move forward. Because motivation, like, it's this tricky little thing. It's fickle. Like, sometimes, you just don't care how you feel. Systems work on good days, bad days, busy days, your tired days. And when you stick to them and small actions compound, that's how burned out dads rebuild confidence, overwhelmed parents rediscover themselves. That's how stuck employees finally start making progress towards the life that feels aligned to them. Progress isn't about perfect execution. It's about consistent contact, keeping up, keep showing up, even in the messy middle. You'll be shocked at how far those really small steps will carry you, and how much more progress and things you learn along the way. And so what I want you to take away from today is that someday, there's no calendar date of that thing. It's not when life magically gets easier. It's a decision. And the truth is, every day that you stay stuck in that waiting room we're talking about, your gifts, the very thing that make you, sit on the shelf collecting dust. And so the strategies we talked about today, they're not just hacks for productivity. They are your way out. They're the system for breaking free from this trap and of the hey, I'll do it when. And actually start living with meaning right here inside the real imperfect and busy, messy life you have. You'll start feeling so much more fulfillment, joy, and delight in your life by doing this. Now, here's the thing that is game-changing for people. The big insight that you can take away. Perfect conditions will never exist. They don't exist. They never have. And the crazy part is the very limits that you've been cursing, not enough time or money or energy, might be the exact things that help spark the creativity, the focus, or the courage to take action. Your gifts are needed right now. I told you at the beginning of the video, you were the only person with your exact combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences. So you're the only person who can make the impact that you're born to make. You're the only person out there. There are people waiting for your impact that only you can make. You're needed now. You're needed now. Not when you feel confident, not when timing's right, not someday, now, right now. And when you choose to start, even small, even messy, even imperfect in any way, you're going to start to discover that transformation doesn't require everything to align. It just requires you to say yes to what's already in your hands. I mean, that's going to be the heartbeat of what we talk about in the giver method, right? It's not about waiting for permission or perfect timing. It's about recognizing that these gifts that you have, they matter today in the middle of your real life and with all its constraints. And when you stop postponing and start showing up as authentically you, you don't just change your life, you become the living proof to your family and your friends and your community that purpose isn't something you wait for, it's something that you build. If this resonates with you in any way, then that's where, once again, I tell you, go grab yourself a copy of The Giver Method on Amazon. The link is down in the description. It's a walkthrough. It's a step-by-step guide, of a framework to show you how to put your gifts to work without waiting for perfect conditions. Now, if feel like you've been sitting in that waiting room for far too long, you feel like you need someone to guide you, help you along the way to finding these things and coming back online, then check out the link below where we talk about the coaching program. There's a video on that page, a bunch of details. Check it out. If it makes sense for you to book a call, then book a call. I love speaking to organizations, teams, communities about this type of message. So if you've got a stage, a podcast, an event, whatever, whatever it is, let's be honest, too many people are stuck waiting, and it's time to shake that up. So if you've got that sort of a platform that this would help, let's connect and talk what that would look like. And then, of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. Don't want you to miss out on the future videos. Like the video, comment, maybe tell me whether of the 5 things we talked about, which one are you ready to try? Which one sticks out to you? Just remember this, your authentic life, the life you've wanted of fulfillment, joy, happiness, all those things, it doesn't start when everything gets perfect. It starts the moment that you choose to take action inside the life that you already have. So please stop waiting for someday. Start today, right? Your future self is going to thank you that you just started taking action now. And with that, I'll just say thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for watching the video. Check out the other videos on the channel, and hopefully you have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in our next video. Have a good one.